Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies this week with today's Monday's Musings on the 5th of May 2025. I'm acutely aware not of energies rising as such, but of a deep yearning within them all to bring forth some form of completion, integration, and an extreme resistance there with its roots in worth and connection that is based around our inability collectively to really truly step into our own innate wisdom. We all know that this year has been about the Hermit, which in the tarot numerically is very much to do with completion, endurance, walking our path, carrying the light that guides us forward. The question this week is, what light is that? What vision is that? When we think of the Hermit card, the lamp that the Hermit carries contains the star, the potential that can only be formed based on how we see ourselves. I share this today with trepidation, with anxiety, with a need to expand beyond my own potential in its raw, vulnerable form. A resistance on my own part to step into the Indigenous side of myself, of my own soul. The resistance there for me personally and collectively is how we have been spoon-fed the narrative of what this means. Our own medicine, our own divine directive and the path that we walk. For example, spirituality. On the one hand, I am seeing a rise in videos that are over-sexualizing healing, that are making the version of healing itself out to be something that is very loud, very proud, very aggressive almost. Now, that's not to say that that doesn't occur, but not all healing is a song and dance. Not all healing has to be voiced to a point where the essence is lost, commercialized. On the other hand, I am also seeing incredible medicine and wisdom being forgotten, being bypassed. And by that, I don't mean just spiritually. Yesterday was the first day I decided to work with AI. Following a prompt from a friend of mine, I wasn't aware that AI can do posts and that AI can do campaigns. Now, this is going to be different for everybody, and I do acknowledge that it may have a reaction in some, and I'm purely sharing my own journey with this intelligence. The post that was written took a second. Whilst that was easy, whilst that was very to the point, whilst that directed everything I wanted to share, for me personally, it lacked experience. It lacked the knowledge that I gained. It lacked the human side. It lacked my flaws. We live in a world where flaws are a derogatory term. Flaws are something we are trying to get over, to remove, to eradicate in a fast-fixing society. Why is that important? Why is that related to the Hermit year? Why is that related to the changes that are coming? Why is that related to the 5th of May? Well, it's something I'm actually having to break down myself. And the 5th of May, and we all will in our own way, underneath it all, yes, yesterday I typed into AI about the 5-5 portal and the upcoming full moon, and underneath it all, yes, there is a calling here to remember the wisdom that is within us and the power and the energy that we are really being encouraged to connect to. how we do that is in our own individual journey. So whilst guidance can come from artificial intelligence or from our guides ourselves, the energy this week is really suggesting how important it is to be part of that creative process. If we are to avoid apathy, if we are to avoid silencing of something far greater than how many sales we can get with good posts, how direct we can be with what it is we're sharing, how polished and perfect we can be, this goes beyond authenticity, deep into the feminine voice that is trying to rise, that will do so how it needs to do so, that may not be as bright and shiny and masculine and direct as we may want it to be. So I'm going to share some of the things that have risen before I look at the energies this week as guided. And that feels important to recognize that everything in our life is a guidance, whether that's the energies that we work with, whether that's artificial intelligence that do our campaigns, whether that's creativity and painting, whether that's information provided, this video included, it is all a guidance. What is that guidance? To return back to our own self, to return back home to our Indigenous self. It isn't here to eradicate who we are, but to strengthen the foundations of that in everything that we do. And this week we are being encouraged, if anything does the opposite, to see it for what it is, to really be honest with why we are connecting and seeking the answers we are externally, to look at the doubt we may have internally. So this is where I share my own version of this journey. Today is International Day of the Midwife, and I choose that to speak about first because I've been a midwife. It is the day that we celebrate those that hold space for life, those that hold space for what has been created to be born, to nurture that, to know the stages of that, to acknowledge and witness the beauty of that. It is a profession as old as time, midwifery, and it is something, yes, of course, many are trained in that, myself included, from a biological and spiritual and emotional perspective. However, it is something we all do on a regular basis. Whether we are cooking a meal, whether we are listening to a friend's concerns, whether we are witnessing the news and the unfolding of the world around us, we are midwives. We are with woman, we are with the feminine, we are here to give her a voice, regardless of gender, in how we choose to create with the energies that are available. Acknowledging that in ourselves this week is really important. Does that mean we're perfect? Absolutely not. But that is part of it. That is the beautiful side of it also. To acknowledge that place and not eradicate what makes us human, because in doing so we are eradicating the wisdom within us, the wise man or woman, or again, regardless of gender, within us, the wise soul, the Indigenous soul within us. Which brings me on to the second thing I want to speak about today. 5th of May is also a day, I've got a few statistics here that actually I want to share with you guys. Also a day where the murdered and missing Indigenous women come to light. It's a day of wearing red, hence the lipstick that I have on. I don't have any red clothes because I've packed them away. However, I do have red lipstick. You will see many people on social media with handprints over their face to mirror and show the eradication of the feminine voice, particularly in Indigenous cultures. Red is also very powerful. It is the root chakra. It is the colour that links us to the earth. It is also our blood. This morning I actually had some blood on tissue and hid it in the bin because I didn't want it to be seen, and I could really feel this higher message of not wanting my own blood to be seen as well. So being aware of that this week, not wanting our true nature to be seen, and being honest with that, where that may come from. The reason I have shared the Indigenous Day last is my own discomfort with that, my own not wanting to be not wanting to culturally appropriate a journey I know nothing about, that I can only read about, that I can only stand behind and support as much as possible from where I am. Acknowledging that this week is really, really important as well. There is a very quick way of living where a lot of healing, a lot of spirituality, a lot of professions and ways of being, old ways of being that have taken centuries to be the way that they are being eradicated in their sacredness. I do it myself. I was sharing with some friends the other day that I need to take myself more seriously. But actually it isn't seriousness I need, it's sacredness. It's respecting my journey and the path that I've walked. Standing in who I am so that I can hold space and provide what I do. And that's the invitation this week. But also the acknowledgement of other cultures with that and the appreciation of that also. Rather than the over-sexualization, one of the biggest things with Indigenous cultures is the over-sexualization of Indigenous women that have led to, I'm going to read some stark statistics in a moment, that have led to mass murders, rapes, domestic violence. Cultures are not a fashion. They are not something that we step in and out of whenever it suits us. They're a way of living for many people, and I share this with great passion with a lot of the things that I share. It is not a job for me. It is a way of living and a way of being that is at the brink of extinction from our own actions. Again, it is time I take myself more sacredly also and deeply connect into that. So why don't we? Why do we reach to other cultures instead of rooting into our own? Something that will be rising for us all as we go into 2026 is to acknowledge that vision, that light that we're carrying forward. And I'm aware that I've strayed from the Indigenous comments that I wanted to share from my own feeling of inadequacy. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that I've seen on social media today. And this page is from the Native Women's Wilderness Organisation. I'll put the address in the comments. Please, please, please visit them. Please have a read of what is going on, and in whatever way you feel drawn to or called to support this. I'm aware that we all have our causes and that we all resonate with certain things. And for me personally, it's time to acknowledge that I do resonate with this energy. So in sharing this, I'm doing that, but also standing behind a cause I firmly want to spread awareness on. So it is about murdered and missing Indigenous women. As of 2016, the National Crime Information Center reported 5,712 cases of missing American Indian and Alaska Native women and girls. However, the US Department of Justice Missing Persons Database only reported 116 of these cases. The majority of these murders are committed by non-native people on native-owned land. I'm just going to share some of the statistics down here. Indigenous women and girls and two-spirits are 10 times more likely to be murdered than any other ethnicities. Murder is the third leading cause of death for Indigenous women. It shows you on the website where the information has come from, so I'm not going to share that. Just have a look yourself. More than 4 out of 5 Indigenous women have experienced violence. That's 84.3% of women. More than half of Indigenous women have been physically abused by their intimate partner, 55.5%. More than half of Indigenous women have experienced sexual violence, 56.1%. Less than half of Indigenous women have been stalked in their lifetime, 48.8%. Indigenous women are 1.7 times more likely than Anglo-American women to experience violence. Indigenous women are 2 times more likely to be raped than Anglo-American white women. And the murder rate of Indigenous women is 3 times higher than Anglo-American women. Now, this isn't about comparison. I'm not sharing this video. There's a few statements there on policy initiatives and landmarks because of awareness. And it's that reason that I am sharing this. This isn't about one culture struggling more than the other. This is about our oldest Indigenous forms of the feminine being stalked, being murdered, being raped, being eradicated because of over-sexualization, because of taking what people want from a culture, but not actually walking the path that they have walked, because of taking this culture and making it more of a fashion statement than a way of being. If we truly want to merge our beliefs, our systems, our medicine, it isn't about taking on somebody else's. It isn't about removing our flaws. It is about walking side by side with each other on the individual paths that we tread. Today with the 5-5 portal, I'm going to share a link in the bottom of this page to a meditation to connect back to the belly of the mother, something that I normally share with the Moon Eye Key groups or teachings. It is about finding your roots. It is about acknowledging what is going on around you, but also internally, reflectively, what is going on for you this week and for this year and for our whole life. Where are we being violent to our own feminine? Where are we silencing that voice for ease and for grace or for sales? Where are we eradicating the raw power of our creative ability? Because we may feel we're not relevant, or we may feel we're unworthy, or we may feel as if we have no right to say anything, or disconnected from what is happening. Where are we being stirred up and not following that through? I don't know where the rest of this is going to lead for me this week or the next few months, although I do have an inkling that there is a wisdom within me that is being called back home. Just like there is in a lot of people that I'm working with, in particular with womb massage and the feminine, there is an innate voice that is returning to us all. That's going to take a while to integrate. That's going to take a few bumps in the road for us to get used to. But if we remove the bumps, if we eradicate the things that are stirring us up and try and make the process perfect and polished, we are going to lose the wisdom along the way. This week, looking at where any creative processes you are part of have removed you out of the equation. Doing something that is out of your comfort zone, knowing it may not be perfect, but that it's moved you, and trusting the outcome of that. Not relying on an intelligence outside of you, but a knowing from within. I just want to take a moment in that shift of energy before we look at the week and how to best navigate it. I just want to invite you to close your eyes, to place your feet on the floor, to feel the heartbeat of the earth beneath you, to allow that wisdom and that remembrance to rise to your heart space, expanding your energy, your vision, particularly of yourself, knowing that the only reason there is complication in our lives is because we've forgotten the simplicity of our own souls. Just allowing that energy, that remembrance to return home. And giving thanks for every step that we've taken to this moment. So often in our rush to remove the aspects of ourselves we may not like, appreciate, wish we could control, we invalidate everything that we have experienced. and the healing and the knowledge that comes from that. The truth of being human. And this is where I'm being called to share with you something that I actually asked AI this morning, if I still have it on my phone. I asked AI if it had any flaws other than its incredible self-awareness. What it came up with was outdated or incorrect information. AI knowledge cuts off in 2024 unless they search the web. It says here, so I may miss recent developments. Being aware of the limit of our own information. Seeing that not as a flaw, but an invitation to explore more. I really felt this morning something rising within me, and it felt very indigenous and very innate, as I say. And AI, Google, guides, outer information helped me to really recognize other things that were going on in this world today in particular. Another flaw that AI has is a lack of true understanding. I don't have consciousness or emotions, so while I can simulate empathy or insight, it's not lived experience. Please, 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 never downplay the experience that you've gained along the way, particularly replacing it with a need to get across something in a certain perspective. Your view, your insight, your vision is so important. Overconfidence. I can sound very certain even when I'm wrong, which can be misleading. Coming back to the core, with any information that we received this week, how does that actually feel? How does that resonate with me? How having those senses within us can feel frustrating. We can get insecure with some of our emotions, but they are an incredible navigational tool to the accuracy of what we are experiencing. Limited nuance. Subtleties in tone, humour, or cultural context can trip me up. Just like ourselves as well, but recognizing that the information that we are receiving lacks humanness. Doesn't matter how we portray it, it lacks humanness. It is about embodying and integrating what we are downloading, if you will, into our everyday experiences. Creativity boundaries. While I can be creative, I follow patterns. So truly novel, intuitive leaps, like a human artist or mystic might make, can be limited. And it's that I want you to really feel into this week. Recognizing our flaws for the leaps of evolution that they can bring us. Honing that intuitive wisdom. Being part of that creativity, witnessing it in ourselves. Stepping into the midwives that we all came here to be. Delivering that potential, not by picking bits out of it, but allowing it to come full to its completion this week as a whole scenario, as a whole relationship, as a whole way of being. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the human species has an incredible way of segregating things in order to understand them. Finish the wheel. Bring it back. We can acknowledge something outside of us. I can acknowledge the Midwives Day and Indigenous Missing Women's Day. I can acknowledge all of that. And I can recognize with appreciation why that has come to my awareness. And I can share that and I can feel into the healing that is needed collectively. But then I bring it home to my own innate wisdom that I'm suppressing, to my own deliveries that I'm perhaps not witnessing or holding space for enough. And with honesty, really look at where that's coming from. It's one thing to seek external guidance. It is not there to take you out of the system. It is not there to remove you from what you are creating, but help you to do so. Okay, so with that in mind, let's bring it back down to every day. I always find it beautiful and ironic that I use the tarot for every day. Things can get a bit lofty, and that's the thing for me personally. The tarot, all of these things, they are tools to help us apply things to every day. Just like AI, it is an opportunity to take what we know and apply it, not to remove everything that we've discovered, but to hone that into a more streamlined direction. Okay, right. Energies this week. There is more to the AI, and it's uncomfortable for me to speak about because the truth is I don't really know much about it. I don't really use it. I'm not a computer savvy person. I have to be very mindful of my own views and my own restrictions and my own fears around AI as well. But there is more to come to be discussed on that. Being aware of that. Should I so wish? Did I so wish? Never, ever, ever thought I would be talking about computer systems. Being open this week to what you are being guided to look at. Because again, computer systems, Indigenous women, these are things that I would not be expected to discuss because I'm failing to see my own inner value and perspective and potential. And I'm aware of that. So really being honest with yourself this week. If something is coming into your attention for whatever reason, it is there for a reason, and just feeling into any resistance you may have. Okay, energies this week and how to best navigate it. There is a full moon at the end of the week. I can't remember what sign it's in, but I will write about that. So obviously the energies are building, and like I say, we do have the 5-5 portal today, which, as if you add it all up, it would be 10, 19. Yeah, so coming back to the energy of the Wheel of Fortune, but the Magician and the Fool as well. It's one thing to know these things are about change. How are we going to channel that? How are we going to create something different? Well, by seeing ourselves differently, by opening up to the discomfort that may bring. The last thing I wanted to do was to talk about things that I have limited knowledge with. However, one, it's led me on to investigate further, to share something different, and to really appreciate the courage that takes. So feeling into that this week as well. Energies this week and how to best navigate it. Knight of Cups at the bottom of the pack. What is being offered here is encouraging us to move, and it may be encouraging us to move in more romantic ways or less tangible ways, and it may leave us doubting our ability or what is actually being offered to us. And that's the thing, isn't it? Underneath it all, it's about acknowledging the gifts that we have, the experiences that we've received, the intuitive guidance that is being given to us, and trusting our ability to receive that and accept that and to move forward with that. There is in the background here the horse, and this is 2026. This is that year to come. Okay, so knowing that it may not make sense this week, but it's all part of a bigger picture. Things are moving, particularly emotionally and with the psyche, the collective psyche also. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, overall. So there are decisions from last week that have yet to be made. That card has come back up again, and whilst it is a different week, and we must be aware that it is a different week, some of the energies are very similar, and that's causing an overall apathy and a mental nearing the point, the end of our tether here. There is a need for balance. There is new energy coming in and new wisdom coming in, but we must get through this full moon first. The full moon is going to bring up many areas where we have seen ourselves from a very illusionary perspective, where we haven't actually acknowledged that the frustrations that we feel are based on our own insecurities, that we are avoiding collectively some of the things we are being asked to channel and to work with, based on the wisdom we have gained. And it's that ability to see how far we have come and base our actions around that this week that's going to bring us full circle throughout the week, actually, and allow that balance to be fine-tuned. Okay, so be open to different ways to doing things. So this rather than break it down initially like I normally do, there's growth here from the Seven of Pentacles, but growth in the fact that it's all part of the story. Recognizing each step this week for the greater version of truth that is being born through us all. Yes, it's okay to separate things and to look at things on a daily basis or a minutely basis to see where things have grown. But if we limit ourselves to just that, if we say this week this has happened, so I haven't really grown, and we don't see the whole picture of everything that has occurred, we are limiting our own growth. And what does that do? When we limit our own growth, I feel it in my solar plexus, we try and regain control. And we start pulling at things that have actually been developed, pulling at things, questioning, doubting, discombobulating ourselves, if you will, from our own connection. And potentially that is there this week because decisions that needed to be made have yet to be decided. We're not going to get away from this. It's going to be part of our everyday occurrence. It's going to be visible in everything that we do, where we may not be stepping into our divine willpower. The informed consent has to come from us, of course, but we are going to be shown the consequences if we do not make these choices this week. So on the Monday, I'm very aware of time. On the Monday, we have the Two of Pentacles, and I do feel very aware of time today, but it feels quite important not to be on time as such, but in time, to recognize that some of the time we take to do things has come from overcomplicating things because we don't trust ourselves or the wisdom and the guidance that is coming through. Where are we making things more complicated? Do we actually need external intelligence to show us that? Or can we just feel into something, pause, take stock, connect to the earth like that meditation just now, and allow the wisdom to come through? As you can see, once we're connected to our body, once we're connected to the ground beneath us, once we feel that red thread, if you will, that blood that runs through us all and into the earth herself, the wisdom starts to come in, and it comes in very quickly. So acknowledging that any balance, particularly on the Monday, is going to come from how integrated we are in our bodies, how integrated we are in our needs, how willing we are to open up to anything that's going to show us perhaps where we are not. Yes, externally, but it is always a reflection of the internal with the Two of Pentacles. Now that's going to bring forth some changes on the Tuesday that may not have been in our greatest alignment. We may have been walking a certain path or narrative or story that wasn't completely our whole truth. Come the Monday, things are going to be discovered that are going to help bring a closure to any mental mindset that we've had about our journey, about who we are and where we are headed in the Ten of Swords, if we allow it. What comes after the 10? The Ace of Swords, which we have on the Wednesday. So remembering anything that comes up on the Tuesday that may make us feel disheartened mentally, in particular, a bit lost, not knowing where we are going. What comes after the 10 of Swords? The Ace of Swords, quite literally this week, but the end of how things were or what we thought they were brings forth a new beginning on the Wednesday. If we can let go of everything that we had assumed, not cling to the expectation of something, then what happens is we do things for the intuitive, innate way of doing things. We are aligned with where we are in that moment, and that brings forth a greater expansion of our own physical vision here. That really opens up our mindset to what is occurring, and I feel it in my throat. It opens our communication. On the Thursday, we have the moon card. I don't think that is the full moon, but we have the moon card on the Thursday. So I'm rubbing my chin because I never wear lipstick, or at least not very often. And when I do, I always get it on my chin or on my teeth. So just ensuring that what I'm portraying hasn't slipped. Just ensuring what I'm portraying hasn't left a stain somewhere else where it needs to be looked at, particularly on the Thursday. So what message are we trying to get across emotionally that has been somehow covered up or overthought? Or, we are in the year of the Hermit, we are in the year of the energy of Virgo. What have we tried to make perfect? How has that emotionally left us? Are we hidden? Are we in the darkness of being something that we're not actually drawn to be anymore? On the Thursday, that's really going to come up because on the Friday, we have the apathetic card. We have the Four of Cups, that what once sustained us no longer does, but that does mean we need to open up to what possibly could. again, going back to the Indigenous sisters, that silencing of their voice, my own silencing there as well, of more innate wisdom that I know is trying to come up that will change how I see things, that is myself included, but also recognizing where I've pushed that to one side. For us all collectively on the Friday, what gifts, what wisdom, what tools have we pushed to one side? Maybe, just maybe, our flaws are the very beauty that we're here to offer. How are we taking ourselves away from that? How are we removing them from our situations? How inauthentic are we being as a result? Because it's that that's causing the frustration by the end of the week. If we can acknowledge that and be honest with that, come Saturday, there are decisions to be made again with the lovers, and they are going to be the decisions that were around last week and the week before, particularly from the new moon. Actually, there are going to be choices about the connection that we want to make in our relationships, in our job, in our purpose, and how fulfilling that is. Have we gained enough information about ourselves to do that? Are we going to keep repeating these cycles until we feel ready? And again, there's no judgment there, although there is judgment in my communication. So being mindful of that on the Saturday, being aware of the energy. We can say we're not doing something, but actually our whole body, our whole soul and energy may be completely doing the opposite. So we can say that we're ready for something, but actually it's not being portrayed that way. So being mindful of your own alignment and your own authenticity on the Saturday before any decisions are made, being really grounded in that. On the Sunday, we have the King of Pentacles. So again, it is that opportunity to ground into your own actions here, to recognize in this card in particular the wealth of information around you from the path that you've walked, and choose then finally what it is you want to take forward. There is an emphasis here on the wild energy within us, but it's not about taming the wild energy this week, but allowing it to speak. It's not about over-sexualizing it. It's not about making it louder than it needs to be. It's not about proving a point this week. It's just allowing that wild, that inner wild within us to move and to create what it needs to create, and to witness that. To witness ourselves can be the most grounded reaction that we can do to initiate change. Okay, so 7 minutes, not bad for a week. Let's look at the energies that we have. We have two major arcanas here, the moon and the lovers. Don't worry too much about what the decision is. Last week there was a lot of judgment that may not have been as obvious as we think. This week, the decisions, yes, they are very similar to last week. They are stemmed, rooted in that, but they also are rooted in a far bigger expansion of ourselves. This is a choice that has been going since time. I see Adam and Eve here. This is about biting into our own wisdom. This is about understanding ourselves and really stepping into that power that comes with that when we root into the naked, raw version we are. Authenticity is becoming a bit of a trend and fashionable at the moment, but acknowledging whether or not you are the same online as you are in person, whether you are the same in one relationship as you are in another, that doesn't mean the different versions of you aren't valid, but bringing them all into one and finding what energy is underneath it all, like the mighty tree with the branches. What are you actually rooted in? Have you been avoiding that? I most definitely have been avoiding my own Indigenous energy. I'm very aware of that. That makes me quite emotional, and it is time to step into that. It is a choice that has been behind all of the choices all along. This week, acknowledging, yes, it may feel familiar to last week or perhaps a few weeks ago, but this is the choice of all choices. It is about seeing yourself for who you really are, emerging from any disillusionment you may have found. It's one thing to point out all the things that aren't right in the world outside, but what is going on internally? Are the tools that we're using supporting us to be who we are, or helping us to hide that? A deep diving week of decisions regarding our own divinity. So we then have 1, 2, 3 pentacle cards, 2 sword cards, and a water card. And I hear what is missing. What is missing is the fire, right? There's no elements of the fire this week. Can I just check what was underneath? No. And that feels quite important. We may almost think that there's no passion there, there's no drive there, there's no ambition there. If I allow things to be, if I work with my flaws alongside them rather than get rid of them, if I actually create myself, who's going to want that? It has to be a certain way, it has to be X, Y, and Z, it has to be reachable for other people. And how much emphasis are we putting on how other people take things? And what effect is that having on what we're creating this week? Because there aren't any fire signs in the minor arcanas. I mean, obviously the Lover's energy can be quite fiery, but there aren't any fire signs per se in the reading for this week. That doesn't mean that the passion isn't there. That doesn't mean that the creativity isn't there. We are the passion. We are the spirit, we are the creativity, and the sooner we can acknowledge that, and that's where I feel it under the solar plexus, there's a need to control that. The sooner we can acknowledge that wild within us, the easier things are going to unfold, because we have 3 pentacle cards. The growth here does come actually from physical growth this week. The 7 of Pentacles, the 2 of Pentacles, and the King of Pentacles. Things are blossoming. It's down to us to find the balance to be able to see that. Are we going to say what hasn't happened? Are we going to get caught up in what we would like? Are we going to be lost in where we are? Or are we going to bring all 3 of those aspects together and actually see how much we have grown and root in that before we take action with the King of Pentacles? We then have 2 sword cards. So the union comes from balance in our mindset this week. We have on the one hand the 10 of swords and on the other the Ace of swords. Things are ending with our mindset. Yes, it's going to be frustrating because we're going to reach a point where we say no more. I've gone over this. I've gone through this. I've tried to understand this. I've tried to heal this. I've tried to shift this, to fix this, to connect to this, to whatever. Only then, when we say no more mentally, can something new come in. So recognizing those times of frustration this week, breathe, pause, allow something else to come in. Don't go back to thinking about the old ways of doing something if they didn't work. Don't focus on what isn't working. If that means you have nothing to focus on for the time being, then open and receive. We then have 1 cup card, which is the 4 of Cups, although we do have the Knight of Cups underneath, and that feels quite important to acknowledge that underneath it all there has been a time where things have been offered to us where it may not have moved as quickly as we'd like, or it may not have been what we hoped, or a lot of expectation there, a lot of romanticizing rose-tinted glasses, or what we may have believed were rose-tinted glasses, because we've got caught up in expectation. And that can lead to an apathetic attitude this week, a not trusting attitude this week, that can actually impact what we share and who we are, and we're going to receive based on that. Really acknowledging that truth. We may not be able to receive our gifts because we may not trust them, because we expected them to be a certain way, or we expected ourselves to be a certain way. There's a lot of gifts I know myself that I continue to block because I don't see myself that way. This week, opening our perception, our mindset of who we think we are, and allowing what we need to move us through now to come in. Not basing it on things that we've received before. I do see that as relationships as well. So a great time to really open our heart. Well, it's not our heart, actually, it's our mind. The heart is ready, it's the mind. The heart is actually bloody bored of waiting for the mind to catch up this week. So, a lot of the wisdom that's coming through is nothing that I didn't already know, but it's waiting for the mind to get over itself this week. Or risk feeling very bored, not only with each other but ourselves. 3 of Cups and the Page of Cups. Deliverance. Okay, deliverance, a new birth, a new creative endeavor here, but recognizing where we may be separate from our own beliefs, where we may be focusing on how something has to be, and where that may have caused division in our ability to create it. It's there. The beginning is there. The culmination of everything is there. I'm being drawn also to the meteorite shower today. That's something I completely forgot. So let's look at that. looking at what we may have forgot. The Eta Aquarid Meteor Shower. Learn more. Okay, so that actually starts on April the 15th to May the 27th. And the best time to view it will be in the hours before dawn on May the 5th. And it's debris left over from Halley's Comet. Looking up to the stars, looking up to the vision, allowing that to guide you this week. Remember, it is all how you see yourself that anchors your reality. Is there anything else on that? Looking at where we may be seeking more in order to avoid what we already know. Take care, and I shall see you next week.